the Lord of Wisdom had awakened into Ciel. And in accordance with Rimuru's wishes, its power would bloom into ever sharper view. As ordered by Rimuru, Ciel, formerly Raphael, took action to intercept Velgrynd. Velgrynd, the Scorch Dragon, unleashed her devastating burning breath, further empowered by the ultimate skill Regel. To her disbelief, Rimuru stood unbothered, his absolute defense, Uriel, nullifying the incinerating heat without effort. Realizing that simple power wouldn't suffice, the true dragon shifted tactics. She manifested multiple separate bodies to converge a terrifying 22-part heat attack, a fusion of nuclear cannons and burning breaths, capable of vaporizing an asteroid. Yet, as the blinding rays struck from every angle, Rimuru's shield of light remained impenetrable. The Demon Lord hadn't just survived. He had rendered the Scorch Dragon's greatest offensive completely obsolete. He blocked it with absolute minimal movement, like he calculated that to perfection. Velgrynd's pride fractured as her scorching heat failed to affect Rimuru. Despite her vast magicule reserves, the slime's terrifying efficiency threatened to exhaust the true dragon first. Worse yet was the insult of his indifference. Rimuru ignored her entirely, focusing his full attention on Veldora. While he carefully countered the storm dragon's strikes, he dismissed Velgrynd with a simple passive shield. Realizing he didn't even view her as a threat, her frustration boiled over into pure, unbridled rage. "I'm gonna make him regret looking down on me." So the proud Velgrynd decided to unleash the most powerful attack in her possession. Ignoring Rimuru's indifference, Velgrynd unleashed her ultimate skill, Regel. By fusing her internal heat with force acceleration, she surged thousands of times past the speed of sound. It was a lethal velocity. A power designed to trigger thermal collapse, reducing any target's physical body and thoughts into pure, volatile energy. That is exactly what this was designed for. Prepare to have your body rot away, not a single piece of flesh left. Cardinal Acceleration. It was her most powerful of techniques, eclipsing even Burning Embrace. Driven by fury, Velgrynd unleashed her secret trump card, Cardinal Acceleration. This ultimate strike, originally reserved for her sister Velzard, roared toward a distracted Rimuru. Faster than the speed of thought, the wave of doom aimed to erase the Demon Lord before he could even perceive his own demise. "I wish I could make him regret underestimating me, but he won't have the time for that now, will he? That's the only regret I have." With this absolute confidence, Velgrynd peered ahead to see how it worked out. Instead, she goggled at the sight of Rimuru standing there, unharmed. No, it can't be. She doubted her own eyes. There was absolutely no way that anyone could withstand an impossible-to-avoid, utterly lethal blow like that without a scratch. Even the Demon Lord Guy Crimson himself, even her sister Velzard the Ice Dragon, could have been taken down by it, or at least Velgrynd thought so. "You're unharmed. That's impossible. My Cardinal Acceleration works against every type of barrier and defensive skill. If you took it that easily, what did you even do?" Velgrynd was clearly losing her cool. If he had cancelled out the attack somehow, that was one thing, but no barrier could ever have deflected it. The reality of it all was too much to grapple with. It gravely affected her composure. "Hot," Rimuru replied. "Well, it was a close call, yeah, but given the impulsiveness of it, it was pretty easy to eat up, you know." This was, in fact, entirely the work of Ciel, who was still dedicated to handling Velgrynd. It worked out exactly as calculated. Rimuru's assistant was attempting to make Velgrynd attack him. Ciel put Rimuru before everything else, doing as it was ordered without getting in his way, and that was enough to shut Velgrynd down. It ran analyze and assess on the dragon's nature, selected an effective response, and put it into action. One example of this was the shield of light Rimuru had been using, which had a special effect on Velgrynd's powers. Ciel, the sum of all its integrated skills, had all of Rimuru's ultimate skills under its control. One of those ultimates was Belzebieth, Lord of Gluttony. Ciel had just used its predation skill, gaining an immediate grasp of Velgrynd's Cardinal Acceleration, and the isolate skill to capture and banish the attack into complex space, an evolved version of Rimuru's stomach. That attack was certainly capable of destroying Rimuru. It couldn't be defended against with normal methods, and even Raphael's computational power wouldn't have been able to deal with it. But Ciel wasn't Raphael. No longer a mere skill, it had evolved into a presence on a different dimension from the Lord of Wisdom. And no matter how the enemy may attack, as long as Ciel could determine the nature of the attack, it was not a problem, something it just proved in the way it wielded Belzebieth. Once isolate was invoked, all that remained was to absorb the energy in complex space. When used like this, the complex space ability of Belzebieth was transformed into a defensive measure as stout as absolute defense from Uriel, Lord of Vows. Velgrynd's surprise was understandable. After all, everything had ended before Rimuru himself had a chance to so much as think, "Oh, crap, I'm in trouble." Still, Rimuru responded defiantly to Velgrynd's shock. He didn't want her to realize it was pretty much nothing he himself did. But Ciel's scheme didn't end there. Able to communicate with Rimuru more smoothly than ever before, it could even use the art of conversation as a weapon to pursue Velgrynd with. But speaking of Velgrynd, you have to be kidding me. You consumed it. You simply ate up Cardinal Acceleration, my greatest ability. She couldn't comprehend what Rimuru meant. It was still the middle of battle, but she was too stunned to move, and, even though it was for just a moment, it was a fatal error. So I'm sorry to bother you while you're still shocked that your amazing attack was a dud, but you didn't forget that we're in a fight here, right? It was already too late by the time he asked. Ciel was unerring in its actions, and Rimuru gave it his full backing. Calculation of Velgrynd's magical count complete. After accounting for the subject's nature and characteristics, I determined it is possible to encase the target in insulated imprisonment for several hundred seconds. Activating. Before Velgrynd realized it, a layered magic circle had surrounded her. This was a compound skill, combining the ultimate skill Uriel's unlimited imprisonment with spatial insulation. Ciel had crafted it just now, exclusively for use against Velgrynd, and now she was caught in it. The combat airspace had been fully computed by Ciel: the temperature, humidity, gravity, wind currents, sunlight, the pulses of every living thing within it. It was all in the palm of Ciel's hand, and no matter what Velgrynd did, it'd be impossible for her to leave this airspace. The blinding light of this insulated imprisonment declared by Ciel made Velgrynd feel dizzy. How could it be so easy for him? The dragon's crimson body trembled in humiliation at having been beaten. But no matter what she tried, the insulated imprisonment never so much as wavered. Okay, sit tight in there for a while, okay? I'll play with you after I free Veldora. The words placed a final exclamation mark on Velgrynd's defeat. Alright. I'll admit defeat this time. But I still have parallel existence. And whether this is insulated imprisonment or not, I can just trace a soul corridor out of here. Velgrynd did have one more move she could make. It'd mean giving up her current body, but the majority of her remaining energy would be channeled back into the replication she positioned next to Veldora as insurance. It was brutally humiliating, but it wasn't the end for her yet. Slowly, cautiously, she got to work, making sure Rimuru didn't take notice. Little by little, she began transferring magicules through her soul corridor, without realizing that was exactly what Ciel wanted. Gotta hand it to Raphael. Ciel, I mean. It seemed kinda down in the dumps to me, so I gave it the name on a whim. And I guess it was happier about it than I thought it'd be. After all, its previous machine-like reactions to me were much smoother and more human-like. I feel like it had been improved by, a lot. It was in such great shape now, I wonder what happened to it just beforehand. It had gone into auto-battle mode on me several times in the past, but now it was activating skills, and doing all kinds of crap. The scale of it all was totally different. Even Velgrynd, who seemed so overwhelming to me, was no match for it. Its suggestion to have her activate her finisher skill, then wait for her magical count to dwindle right afterward was a perfect strategy. The combination of my abilities and the way she responded to certain things was what made it work, which makes it sound easy, but I have no idea how much computing power it'd take to make this possible. We were hopefully outclassed in magical count, after all, so if we wanted to cage up this superior opponent, we needed an insulated imprisonment built efficiently, and with only the elements I enjoyed an advantage in. Call it a calculated prison I created with my partner. That's what it took for Ciel to score a complete victory. The crux of this operation lay upon whether or not I could withstand Velgrynd's attack. Ciel's computation said I could, and I trusted it on that, but if she misread that, it'd be the end of me, too. Why did I trust it? Simple. I was dealing with Veldora, and I told Ciel it was in charge of Velgrynd. I knew it could do it, too, and it lived up to my expectations perfectly, even better than I had imagined. Ciel used my abilities more skillfully than I ever could to fulfill the job. That's my partner for you. Now I was more impressed with Ciel than ever. So thanks to an unexpected boon, Ciel was now more dependable than ever for me. But I couldn't forget my objective. Before Velgrynd made another move, I needed to free Veldora's mind. So how many seconds can we hold her back, exactly? Even if Velgrynd went on a violent rampage, the insulated imprisonment will hold for a total of 200 more seconds. I don't think we need to worry about that, however. Why not? Even 3 minutes and change were something to be grateful for, but Velgrynd's still a major threat. I can't just ignore it that whole time. No, as predicted, Velgrynd is currently trying to escape. I knew she could use a soul corridor to transfer energy away from her, so I considered the possibility that she'd flee without worrying too much about this replication before us. I see. Or I think I do. If any replication could be made into her real body, there was no major need to force her way out of this insulated imprisonment. Or maybe there was, and that was why Ciel created a loophole for Velgrynd to try and exploit. That's right, Velgrynd showed her hand too much, bandying around parallel existence, and not hesitating to use it against the 3 demonesses in Veldora. I had been monitoring all of that, so there was no shortage of material for Ciel to analyze. Velgrynd's parallel existence couldn't produce an inexhaustible supply of clones. Ciel must have measured her magical count to the point that it knew the maximum amount she could hold, and once we knew that, we'd understand how many more replications we needed to churn through before she was defeated. Ciel, meanwhile, worked backward from there. It saw that Velgrynd probably had an insurance policy on hand, and so it baited her into escaping into it. I'd probably do the same thing if I had a power that useful, but my replications didn't have access to ultimate skills. A little annoying, but I was willing to admit defeat there. In the end, the seemingly omnipotent parallel existence could only really be used either as a decoy or against a weaker opponent. I mean, it's still extremely useful insurance, and a nice asset to have depending on the opponent. I can think of a few fun ways to use it. But it just didn't seem effective against someone of equal or higher rank. But Ciel was the one who exposed that weakness for all the world to see. Like, I'm actually kinda scared of its computing ability. Everything was going exactly as Ciel wanted, like it was predicting the future. The progress it's made is kind of exasperating, but either way, Ciel's my partner. Best to stop worrying about extraneous stuff and get on with the objective at hand. Ciel had conquered Velgrynd, strongest of the true dragons, and I sure wasn't gonna fall behind. Alright. But just in case, I'm gonna put all my power up against Veldora right now, so I can be assured to wrap up in under 200 seconds. Give me a hand, Ciel. As you wish. I or Ciel and I guess squared up against Veldora, our primary mission. Ciel had earned me some precious time, not a lot, maybe, but for us, it may as well have been infinite. I'd never live it down if we didn't make the most of it. Could we do it? That wasn't the question, we were doing it. That was the determination in my mind as I resumed my attack on Veldora.